Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by Globalspeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of Globalspeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. What do IT leaders see as challenges and opportunities in our rapidly changing global interconnected economy? What's next in IT workforce solutions, staff augmentation, contingent workforce management? Well, in recently conducted executive forums held in Atlanta, Dallas, Greenville, and Phoenix, the discussion topic was mobile-centric applications and interfaces. And the executive attendings representing 40 organizations shared their developments and challenges in this rapidly growing area of technology. But wait till you hear the rest of the results. Greetings, everyone. It's Friday, June 1st, 2012, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. The Tech Talk turns to tackling what's next in emerging technology projects and challenging business objectives as we explore how organizations find the help and counsel crucially needed in today's, albeit tomorrow's, dynamically fluid global marketplace. With Connie Chiasson, president of the Atlanta-headquartered MDI Group. MDI Group is a leading IT workforce solutions provider with office locations in 5 key metropolitan markets throughout the U.S. and is widely acclaimed for its series of invitation-only roundtable-style executive forums for IT executives and thought leaders. Connie has served in key leadership roles since joining MDI in 2005 that have leveraged her significant IT leadership and management expertise. As president of IT Workforce Solutions, she oversees the sales and delivery of IT services and also participates in community outreach with national technology associations as well as local business groups. It's worth special note that MDI Group's reputation for the highest level of ethics, integrity, and service has enabled them to maintain a long-time trusted relationships industry-wide that have, stand the test of time. And as an IT certified women's-owned business, they are a recognized thought leader in supplier diversity. Mobile apps, now and in the future, strategies, budgets, planning, challenges, deployment, interfaces, security, and more as the Tech Talk looks at what's next for IT workforce solutions with industry leader, MDI Group President Connie Chiasson. Connie, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you, Frank. It's good to be on the program.
I think it's exciting for our listeners to really get some insights. I know MDI is noted for its IT consulting and staffing, but equally for its executive forum series, going into some of the thought leadership or concerns that the industry has in particular verticals and in particular technologies. Tell us a little bit about that concept and how that all works.
We hold an annual series of executive forums in each of our markets. We're headquartered in Atlanta, but hold a forum in each of the markets twice a year, and we poll our client base as well as our prospect base to find out what's top of mind for them in terms of technology and what they're seeing in their IT organizations and trying to appeal to the business needs and objectives of their respective organizations. And these forums are an invitation-only networking event for, like I said, our clients and prospects, and we get representatives from each of those companies. And it just gives them an opportunity to share ideas and best practices around the particular subject matter that we bring to the forefront.
You know, one of the things you hear a lot about now is big data and the idea of the content of information really being there but not necessarily knowing how to use it. I think one of the things that I'm intrigued by, you actually get 40 organizations, sometimes maybe even more, sharing their developments and their challenges in sort of a hybrid environment where they can kind of feed off of each other and share ideas and best practices.
Absolutely. And, you know, they're very open. A lot of times I moderate each of these forums, and a lot of times all I have to do is really get the topic kicked off with a couple of, questions and thought-provoking questions, and the rest of it takes care of itself. I mean, they're anxious to hear from one another, and they usually walk away with new friends in the IT community.
Well, I know that this year the subject has to be one that's on everybody's mind, either someone that's challenged or empowered by it. And I often think sometimes it can be challenging, and that's mobile-centric applications and interfaces. Maybe talk a little bit about what were some of the things that were discussed by the attendees at the all four of the forums this year.
They hit on several different areas. There was, perceived benefits to the business and to their clients. What they're doing in terms of strategic planning around mobile-centric applications, how it's impacting their business, and what they need to do in order to drive IT to support the business objectives through things such as mobile-centric applications. So a lot of things were talked about, and it's interesting, when they reflect back on the things that they're doing as an organization, they're really trying to keep up with trends in technology on several different fronts. One to drive the productivity of their internal employees, the satisfaction of their clients, and building their brand and securing market share. So there's many different ways that organizations are using these applications. Actually,
it's kind of interesting. I can't think of anything, maybe an ERP system or something, the equivalent, or supply chain that goes inside an organization and externally as well when you start thinking about mobile devices and all of the different layers and tentacles of applications. Everything from point of sale to even concerned about younger users wanting to do things easier and more mobile-enabled. But also, you mentioned internally, I know that in some of our discussions here, there's been a lot of discussion about effective communications among employees and among divisions. Do you find that to be something that they were interested in?
Absolutely. There's all sorts of ways in driving the mobility of your workforce, giving them access to the applications that they need in order to do their jobs better, faster, more efficient, whether it's to drive pure production internally for the organization or, again, it's to appeal to a customer base. So a lot of these organizations are really trying to get their arms around all of the things that are going on. So you've got the various functional areas of an organization's business all kind of raising their hand. I need this, and I need this for, to drive return on investment for this particular project or that sort of thing. And so IT organizations are always conscientious about what's going on in their particular business units. For instance, marketing and operations are driving a lot of the use of these technologies. And occasionally they'll go out and do something on their own, which it makes it a little bit challenging for the IT organization because inevitably they're going to end up in a position where they're going to have to manage whatever it is their business went out to third party or externally to get in terms to drive what they need internally. So I think that, while that becomes a challenge, they don't want to, IT doesn't want to squash any innovative ideas coming out of their business in order to meet their business plan objectives, but at the same time they want to help rein it in and give them the confidence that as an IT organization they can support them.
I think that probably never before has technology played such a strong role in business plan objectives. I think when you're talking about process and functionality, you got offsets that usually can justify a return on investment, but when you start looking in terms of marketing and social media outreach and those kind of things, which sometimes are difficult to get a grasp on exactly what kind of investment is needed and just what impact that investment's going to make, these are challenging times for a CTO or CIO. One of the things I guess I'd be curious, and I think you're kind of inferring this now, is that do most of these organizations have a formalized mobile strategy or a defined part of their IT budget dedicated to mobile technology?
Of the organizations that participated in this particular forum, only a couple of them have what they would call anything close to a strategy. They really called it a plan. A lot of folks are really just, again, it's a key focus area. They're doing a lot of things around mobility and mobile-centric apps, but not necessarily under a formalized plan. Of the individuals that have an interest in going down that path, one of the concerns and the reason they're slow to developing them is that they feel like things are changing so rapidly that once they kind of define the strategy, it's going to change. So instead what they've tried to do is really just try to understand what each area of the business is focused on and trying to develop what they would call a soft plan that has some flexibility in it, that they can at least identify where the budget for these types of initiatives sit and how they can manage that appropriately, and then develop metrics and or measures that they can use to really track back to that ROI. Because, again, to your point, that they really want to make sure that it's worth the dollars, not just the hard dollars that they're spending on these initiatives, but the resources and time that's put into it.
Can you afford to do it, or can you afford not to do it? And it's got to be, again, I can see the incredible value of having these organized forums where there's an opportunity to hear other people's concerns, other people's challenges, and begin to realize, wait a minute, it's just not me, it's just not my company. This is something that, in a way, quote unquote, is disruptive and is impacting literally the way we do business. And then certainly, I think another aspect of it is the whole culture, the cultural aspect of it. The whole concept of whether the existing organization is going to adapt, and as you point out, adapt quick enough that something new hasn't already hybrided or evolved that's come out that would change it. And then, of course, you've got, I'm not even sure what they call them anymore, Generation Y, X, Z, D, or whatever it is, 4G, whatever it is. But then you've got the generational dynamics. Talk a little bit about, was there any expression and concern about not only the evolving technologies, but even the acceptance of some of the things that are disrupting literally the way people used to do business or conduct business?
It was very interesting. In all four of the sessions, generations, the discussion around generational dynamics and the differences in the way generations operate in the working world, as well as in their own personal lives and how they socialize ideas. Those two things came up. And, in association with that, collaboration and the way that millennials, if you will, Gen Y, those folks are really driving a lot of the behaviors that are happening in these organizations because of the way that they operate, the way that they consume things, and that sort of thing. And what's interesting, it even impacts some organizations in terms of their hiring process. Because what they're finding is to get good talent, these organizations, in order to compete against other large organizations, if you will, for top talent in the marketplace, it's a matter of having mobility and having the things that these younger generation folks are looking for. So you have adaptation on one end of the generational spectrum, and then you have the other end that's pushing and looking for companies that offer an environment where they can use mobility to work. I mean, they cited examples of younger generation walking into a meeting with a phone, an iPad, and a laptop, and not really even wanting to use their laptop, but wanting to be able to access company information on their iPad so they didn't have to carry a laptop. Bring your own device to work was a huge piece of the conversation, again, driven largely by the younger generation. But not only that, some of the other challenges that came up was management. They think it's the newest, coolest thing to do, and they're showing up and they're going, we don't have a policy around all that. There's just so many tentacles to this topic. It's amazing.
Well, and again, it's not until you get it into an environment where it's open and has a free discussion that a lot of these subjects come out, because even something like use your own technology versus company technology, I've heard that debate, and there's pros and cons on each side of that.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things you commented on is probably unquestionably the one, I think it's almost a ubiquitous problem that everybody is facing. And certainly when you're dealing with mobile devices, you've got management and you've got operations, you've got the internal financials, you've got database contact information. Obviously, every one of these devices represent a pathway, if you will, to stolen data and virus and control issues. What about security? Did they talk about that at all?
They talked about security extensively, and there was two schools of thought. One, there are technologies out there today, software out there today that can help from a security aspect. For instance, if a device is lost, and the ability to wipe that device so that sensitive information is, someone doesn't have access to that sensitive information. Then they talked a little bit about, well, what happens if there's personal data that gets wiped at the same time that you're wiping for business purposes. And so all of these discussions came up, and in all 4 of the forums, there were folks in the room that said, listen, you have to really kind of put together a policy around security and mobile devices and bringing your own mobile device, applications on a personal device versus a work device and that sort of thing. And you have to establish a policy so that you can minimize your risk as an organization when it is time, when a device is lost and you have to wipe that data. But a lot of them talked about sandboxing personal data versus professional data, but it also takes, some discipline on the user's part to make sure that there's no crossover there.
I'm an easy as Sunday morning kind of guy, and one of the things I like to do is watch Sunday morning. And the reason I bring that up is that they were talking about islands on this Sunday, and they believe it or not, it was a great show because there was a lot of talk about different kinds of islands. One of them was an islands of silence that NASA created in West Virginia, about 13,000 acres or something, that they wouldn't allow mobile devices because it disrupted with their astrological signals that were going out into space. So I guess it's about the only place you can hide is maybe go to some place like the quiet zone in West Virginia to get away from the devices. Well, one last point, and I think our listeners would be upset if I didn't ask you, and that is conclusions. What do you think you walked away from the forum with, and some of the clients actually walked away with?
I think the clients really walked away going, okay, I'm not in this alone. There are a lot of folks out there that are challenged with the same types of issues that we are, but there's true opportunity out there in all aspects of the business to engage in mobility and mobile applications and that sort of thing. So I think that was number one that they walked away with. Number two, I think they all shared with each other different types of software and best practices that they could bring back to their own organizations to help them as they kind of navigate the waters of this whole, rapidly changing mobile environment. And then for myself, I think what I took away was I truly saw a lot of engaging conversation, people really interested in connecting and networking with one another post-forum. Exchanging of business cards and just an open sharing of ideas. And, again, most of our markets, we really, MDI's position in the market is mostly around mid-market sized businesses. So the majority of the folks at each of these forums consisted of mid-sized companies in their respective verticals, but we also had a few large organizations attend as well, but they have no less challenge than no less challenge than the mid-market companies. So again, I think that mid-market looks at some of the bigger, more developed, more mature organizations, going, okay, if they're experiencing it, then I know that if I just get my arms around it or I focus and bring in an awareness in the organization, we can make some progress. So.
I think disruption doesn't know size.
That's right. It doesn't.
It probably knows the owners and the entrepreneurs that get frustrated by it, but other than that, it's not a matter. It's a matter of big or small.
That's right.
Connie, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. MDI Group, I guess it's mdigroup.com would be the place to go if they wanted to learn more information. But insightful, I think a great concept, these forums. Obviously, just in our discussion today, they show the value of diving, if you will, into a vertical, but also that collaborative sense of being able to work together and communicate. I think in this day and age, it's almost impossible to do it alone. You have to really kind of be able to have an environment like what you guys are creating at MDI, so hats off. But again, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule for joining us today on Tech Talk.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.